There's a story people tell about California now. You've probably heard it. Maybe you've even told it yourself. It goes something like this. California is finished. The Golden Gates have closed. Unless you're a tech executive or inherited your grandmother's house in 1987, you've been priced out of the dream. Pack your bags for Texas. Consider Tennessee. California is a beautiful museum, and the admission fee is your entire future. It's a compelling narrative, and parts of it are true. San Francisco rents could fund a mortgage in most American cities. Los Angeles housing prices climb like they're training for Everest. The coastal corridors have become playgrounds for the privileged, and the headlines never let us forget it. But here's what the headlines miss. California is enormous. It stretches 800 miles from Oregon to Mexico. It contains deserts and rainforests, alpine peaks and fertile valleys, ghost towns and fishing villages. And scattered across this impossible geography are communities that never made it onto the trend pieces. Towns where people still buy homes on regular salaries. Where the morning commute might involve passing through a grove of ancient oaks. Where neighbors know each other's names. And the cost of a decent life hasn't spiraled beyond recognition. These aren't compromises. They aren't consolation prizes for people who couldn't afford the coast. They're places with their own identity, their own beauty, their own reasons for existing that have nothing to do with proximity to a venture capital firm. This video is about those places. The towns that quietly contradict the dominant narrative. The communities where California still feels possible, not in some nostalgic, sepia-toned way, but right now, today, for people with ordinary incomes and extraordinary standards for how they want to live. What follows is not a list of the absolute least expensive zip codes in the state. It's something more specific. Towns where affordability meets genuine quality of life. Where the trade-offs make sense. Where you could actually imagine building something real. The California dream isn't dead. It just moved somewhere the algorithms haven't discovered yet. Number 10. Weed. Yes, that's really its name. And yes, residents have heard every joke you're thinking of making. The town was named after Abner Weed, a lumber baron who founded a sawmill here in 1897. The name stuck, and so did a quiet community of about 2,700 people living in the shadow of one of the most dramatic mountains in North America. Mount Shasta dominates everything here. It doesn't sit in the background, it commands the horizon like something from mythology. Its glaciated peak rising over 14,000 feet into air so clear it seems artificially enhanced. The mountain creates its own weather, wrapping itself in lenticular clouds that hover like spacecraft above the summit. The town itself occupies a forested plateau, where ponderosa pines mix with black oaks, and the air carries the faint sweetness of high-altitude conifers. Summers bring warm days and cool nights, perfect for hiking the countless trails that ribbon through the surrounding Shasta Trinity National Forest. Winters bring snow, real snow, the kind that transforms the landscape into a silent, crystalline world. Life moves at an unhurried pace here. The downtown stretches a few blocks, anchored by a historic theater and a handful of locally owned shops that haven't been displaced by chains. People garden. They fish in the Sacramento River headwaters. They watch the alpenglow paint Mount Shasta pink at sunset and remember why they left the city. Housing in Weed remains surprisingly attainable by any California standard. Modest homes regularly list between $200,000 and $300,000. Rentals hover around $1,100 to $1,400 for a comfortable two-bedroom. For remote workers with reliable internet, the economic math suddenly makes sense. The honest trade-off. This is isolated country. The nearest significant city is Redding, an hour south. Medical specialists, major airports, and metropolitan amenities require genuine drives. But for those seeking stillness and mountain majesty over urban convenience, Weed offers something increasingly rare, a beautiful life that doesn't require wealth to access. Number 9. Susanville. Susanville exists in a geographic pocket that most Californians have never considered. Situated in Lassen County at an elevation of 4,200 feet, it occupies the transition zone where the Sierra Nevada meets the Modoc Plateau. Volcanic tablelands stretch toward distant ranges. Sagebrush shares territory with Jeffrey Pines. The light here has a quality that photographers travel thousands of miles to capture. This is ranching country, historically. The Honey Lake Valley that spreads east of town once supported vast cattle operations, and that heritage still shapes the culture. But Susanville has its own story, founded in 1854 and named after the daughter of Isaac Roop, a settler who briefly tried to establish an independent territory called Nataqua. That effort failed, but the town survived. Today, roughly 14,000 people call Susanville home, making it the largest community in a county the size of Connecticut. It's a real town with real infrastructure: grocery stores, medical clinics, schools, restaurants. The historic downtown features brick buildings that date to the late 1800s, housing coffee shops and family-owned businesses that anchor community life. Outdoor recreation defines the lifestyle. The Biz Johnson Trail, a 25-mile rail trail along the Susan River, attracts hikers and mountain bikers. Eagle Lake, just north of town, offers excellent fishing in one of California's largest natural freshwater lakes. Winter brings cross-country skiing and access to snowmobile routes that extend for miles through forested backcountry. The housing market here offers genuine accessibility. Homes can be found in the $180,000 to $280,000 range, with some properties stretching toward the low $300. 0 seconds for additional acreage. Rentals typically run $900 to $1,200 for 2 bedrooms. The trade-off is remoteness and economic transition. Susanville's economy has historically relied on corrections, facilities, and shifts in state policy have created uncertainty. Employment options beyond healthcare and government are limited. But for retirees, remote workers, or anyone seeking high desert beauty at a fraction of California's typical cost, Susanville presents a compelling case. Number 8. Fortuna. On the banks of the Eel River, where fog drifts through forests older than memory, Fortuna offers a different kind of California life. This is Humboldt County, the land of giants, where coast redwoods reach heights that defy comprehension, and the ecosystem operates on geological time. Fortuna, Latin for fortune, was founded during the timber boom of the late 19th century. The economy has diversified since then, but the town retains a working-class authenticity that wealthier coastal communities lost decades ago. About 12,000 residents live here, enough to support solid services without losing the small-town fabric. The climate is distinctly North Coast, cool, damp, and mild year-round. Summers rarely exceed the low 70 seconds. Winters are wet, but gentle, almost never seeing frost. This creates a landscape of profound green meadows, forests, hillsides covered in ferns and moss. The Victorian-era downtown features antique shops, local eateries, and the Fortuna Depot Museum, preserving the railroad heritage that once defined the region. Outdoor opportunities are extraordinary. The Headwaters Forest Reserve protects groves of ancient redwoods, accessible by trail. The Eel River offers fishing and kayaking. The Lost Coast, one of California's longest stretches of undeveloped shoreline, lies within an hour's drive. This is nature at its most primordial. And Fortuna serves as an accessible base camp. Housing prices remain reasonable, particularly compared to coastal communities just south. Homes typically range from $300,000 to $425,000, with rentals averaging $1,200 to $1,500 monthly. The trade-off is the weather and isolation. Sunny California, this is not. The gray can feel relentless during winter months, and seasonal depression is a real consideration. The nearest major airport is several hours away. But for those who find peace in moody landscapes and ancient forests, Fortuna offers a lifestyle that feels genuinely different from the California of popular imagination. Number 7. Ridgecrest. Ridgecrest sits in the Indian Wells Valley, flanked by the Sierra Nevada to the west and desert ranges extending endlessly eastward. This is the Mojave Joshua trees, creosote flats, extreme temperatures, and some of the most spectacular night skies remaining in Southern California. The town exists largely because of the nearby Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake, one of the largest military installations in the country. This federal presence brings a stability unusual for desert communities, along with technical employment opportunities and infrastructure that smaller towns often lack. About 29,000 people live here, making Ridgecrest substantial enough to support modern conveniences: chain stores, medical facilities, community college, recreational centers. But step outside the developed areas, and you're immediately in wilderness. The Trona Pinnacle's otherworldly calcium carbonate spires rise from a dry lake bed just south of town. Death Valley National Park lies an hour to the east. The Sierra Nevada, including Mount Whitney, forms the dramatic western horizon. Life in Ridgecrest follows desert rhythms. Summers are genuinely hot triple digits for months, but mornings and evenings remain surprisingly pleasant. Winters bring mild days and cold nights, perfect for hiking and off-road exploration. The stargazing is exceptional, drawing amateur astronomers from across the region. Housing costs reflect the extreme climate and remote location. Homes regularly list between $225,000 and $350,000, significantly lower than California averages. Rentals typically range from $1,100 to $1,400. The honest downside: summer heat is no joke, and the desert aesthetic isn't for everyone. The town feels utilitarian rather than charming, designed around function rather than beauty. But for those who find poetry in stark landscapes and value clear skies over ocean views, Ridgecrest offers a genuinely affordable California existence, with employment options that many small towns can't match. Number 6. Yreka. Near the Oregon border, where Interstate 5 threads through the Shasta Valley, Yreka has quietly existed since gold miners established it in 1851. The name derives from the Shasta word for Mount Shasta, Witaku, and the mountain still dominates the southern horizon, a constant presence in daily life. Yreka serves as the Siskiyou County seat, giving it governmental functions that ensure some economic stability. About 7,800 residents call it home, a population large enough to maintain essential services but small enough that anonymity remains impossible. People here wave to strangers. They hold doors. The social fabric is tight-knit in ways that urban transplants sometimes find overwhelming and sometimes find healing. The historic downtown is genuinely charming, featuring restored Gold Rush-era buildings, including the Siskiyou County Courthouse, a striking classical revival structure built in 1857. Antique shops, local restaurants, and a thriving farmers market provide outlets beyond the usual rural limitations. The surrounding landscape offers four-season recreation. The Marble Mountain Wilderness, one of California's largest wilderness areas, lies west of town. The Klamath National Forest provides endless hiking, fishing, and hunting opportunities. Winters bring snow, though generally less than the higher elevations around Mount Shasta, making the area accessible year-round. Housing in Yreka remains within reach for middle-income buyers. Homes typically range from $220,000 to $340,000. Rentals average $900 to $1,200 monthly. The trade-off involves economic limitations. Job opportunities outside government and healthcare are scarce. The town's small size means limited entertainment options, no concert venues, few restaurants, minimal nightlife. But for those seeking mountain beauty, genuine community, and a pace of life calibrated to human scale, Yreka offers something increasingly precious. Number 5. Maricopa. On the southern edge of the San Joaquin Valley, where the Temblor Range rises toward the Carrizo Plain, Maricopa offers an unexpected study in affordability and resilience. This is oil country derricks and pump jacks dot the surrounding hills, remnants of a boom that reshaped the region a century ago. Maricopa was founded in 1893 as a railroad town, later becoming central to California's petroleum industry. The population today hovers around 1,200, intimate enough that the community feels like an extended family. The downtown is modest, a few blocks of essential businesses, but there's an authenticity here that manufactured communities lack. The landscape surrounding Maricopa might surprise those expecting only drilling equipment and dry grass. The Carrizo Plain National Monument lies just west, home to wildflower superblooms that draw visitors from around the world each spring. The San Emigdio Mountains rise to the south, offering hiking and hunting opportunities, and the Tule Elk State Natural Reserve, one of the last protected herds of this native species, adds an unexpected wildlife dimension. The climate is warm and dry, typical of inland Southern California. Summers run hot, winters mild, with occasional Tule fog adding a mysterious quality to winter mornings. Housing costs here are among the most accessible in the state. Homes can be purchased in the $150,000 to $250,000 range, prices that seem almost fictional to coastal Californians. Rentals run correspondingly lower, typically $800 to $1,100. The trade-off is real: limited amenities, long drives for significant shopping or medical care, and an economy still tied to the volatile oil industry. The nearest substantial city, Bakersfield, is about 45 minutes north. But for those willing to embrace simplicity, Maricopa proves that budget-friendly California living exists, and that it doesn't require abandoning beauty. Number 4. Bishop. The Owens Valley holds Bishop like a jewel in a granite setting. To the west, the Sierra Nevada forms an unbroken wall of 14,000-foot peaks, including the Palisades, a range of technical summits that draw climbers from around the world. To the east, the White Mountains rise nearly as high, including ancient bristlecone pine forest, home to the oldest living trees on Earth. Bishop functions as the primary service center for this vast eastern Sierra region. About 3,800 people live within town limits, though the surrounding area adds significantly to that number. The town has cultivated a genuine outdoor culture, climbing shops, gear outfitters, and the annual Mule Days celebration each May, honoring the pack animals that helped build the West. The natural setting is extraordinary by any standard. Within an hour's drive, you can access alpine lakes, hot springs, ancient petroglyphs, volcanic craters, and multiple wilderness areas. Rock climbing in the Buttermilks, a field of glacial boulders with world-class problems, has made Bishop a pilgrimage site for the international climbing community. The climate features 4 distinct seasons: hot summers, cold winters, spectacular springs and falls. The dry air and high elevation create a clarity of light that artists have long sought. Housing costs remain surprisingly reasonable for such a desirable location. Homes typically range from $350,000 to $500,000, with rentals averaging $1,300 to $1,700. The trade-off involves distance and winter severity. Bishop is 3 hours from Reno, 4 from Los Angeles. Snow can close mountain passes. Medical specialists require significant travel. But for outdoor enthusiasts willing to embrace remoteness, Bishop offers a lifestyle that coastal Californians can only dream of, at prices that make those dreams possible. Number 3. Clear Lake. Clear Lake is California's largest natural freshwater lake, and the town of Clear Lake wraps around its southern shore. For decades, this area existed in the shadow of Napa and Sonoma, those famous wine regions an hour south. That obscurity has translated into pricing that remains accessible when neighboring counties have become playgrounds for the wealthy. The lake itself is ancient, over 2.5 million years old. Among the oldest lakes in North America, it supports an extraordinary ecosystem, drawing birders and naturalists who find species here that occur nowhere else in California. Fishing remains central to local identity. Base tournaments bring competitors from across the West. Clear Lake has faced challenges, water quality issues, economic struggles, social problems that any honest assessment must acknowledge. This is not a polished resort community. But recent years have brought investment and improvement, and the fundamental natural assets remain extraordinary. The surrounding landscape includes Mount Canocti, an ancient volcano rising directly from the lake's southern shore. Anderson Marsh State Historic Park preserves wetlands and Pomo cultural sites. The wine industry has expanded northward, bringing tasting rooms and agricultural investment. Housing costs here represent some of the most accessible in Northern California. Homes regularly list between $200,000 and $350,000. Rentals average $1,000 to $1,400. The trade-off is real and shouldn't be minimized. Economic depression has left marks, and the community continues working through challenges. But for those seeking lakefront living without lakefront prices, Clear Lake offers something genuinely unusual: California waterfront that ordinary people can actually afford. Number 2. Crescent City. At California's northwestern corner, where the Smith River enters the Pacific and ancient redwoods descend nearly to the shoreline, Crescent City occupies one of the most dramatic settings in the American West. This is raw coastline, sea stacks, tide pools, rocky headlands where gray whales pass close enough to see without binoculars. The town itself serves as Del Norte County's primary hub, home to about 6,700 residents. It's isolated. The nearest city of any size is 4 hours south, and that isolation has preserved something essential. Chain development is minimal. Local businesses dominate. The pace of life follows natural rhythms: fishing seasons, crabbing schedules, the migration of salmon up regional rivers. The Redwood National and State Parks essentially surround the town. Ancient groves stand within minutes of the harbor. Jedediah Smith Redwoods, one of the most spectacular old-growth stands remaining anywhere, lies just inland. Hiking, kayaking, beach exploration, and wildlife observation define the lifestyle. The climate is cool and wet, north coast weather at its most authentic. Summer fog moderates temperatures. Winter storms bring drama. Sunny days feel like gifts. Housing remains remarkably accessible. Homes typically range from $275,000 to $400,000. Rentals average $1,000 to $1,400. The trade-off is isolation and weather. This is not for everyone. Winter gray can stretch for months. Services that urbanites take for granted require planning or long drives. But for those seeking coastal beauty without coastal prices, Crescent City offers something approaching the miraculous. Oceanfront California that a middle-income household can genuinely afford. Number 1. Grass Valley. In the gentle hills where the Sacramento Valley begins its rise toward the Sierra Nevada, Grass Valley has quietly become something remarkable. An affordable California town that sacrifices nothing in character, culture, or natural beauty. This is gold country, and the town's history runs deep. Founded in 1849, Grass Valley became one of the richest gold mining towns in California, producing millions in ore from the Empire and North Star mines. That wealth built a Victorian downtown of unusual elegance, brick buildings, ornate facades, narrow streets that haven't been widened to accommodate modern traffic. The town has evolved into something unexpected, a cultural hub in the foothills. The Nevada Theater, California's oldest existing theater building, hosts live performances year-round. A vibrant arts community supports galleries, music venues, and festivals. Farm-to-table dining has taken root, supported by the surrounding agricultural landscape. About 13,500 people live here, a population that supports genuine urban amenities, quality restaurants, boutique shopping, medical services without losing small-town identity. Sacramento lies an hour west, providing access to airports and metropolitan resources. Tahoe sits an hour east, offering ski slopes and alpine recreation. The natural setting is Sierra foothills at their best. Rolling hills covered in live oaks and ponderosa pines, seasonal creeks cutting through forested canyons, wildflowers carpeting meadows each spring. The climate offers 4 distinct seasons without extremes: warm summers, cool winters with occasional snow, spectacular autumns. Housing costs, while rising, remain accessible compared to the coast. Homes typically range from $375,000 to $550,000. Rentals average $1,400 to $1,800. The trade-off involves that rising popularity. Grass Valley has been discovered, and prices are climbing. But for now, it remains a place where creative professionals, retirees, and young families can afford to build lives surrounded by history, culture, and genuine natural beauty. It's California as it should be, still within reach. These 10 towns share something beyond price points and housing statistics. They share a truth that the dominant narrative about California tries to erase. This state remains vast enough to contain multitudes. Expensive and accessible, celebrated and overlooked, impossible for some, entirely attainable for others. The California dream was never really about coastal real estate or tech wealth. It was about possibility, the idea that somewhere in these 800 miles of landscape, a person could find the life they were looking for. That possibility still exists. It just requires looking beyond the obvious, beyond the headlines, beyond the places that algorithms and influencers have already claimed. The towns in this video aren't perfect. Each one asks for trade-offs. Distance from family, limited job markets, weather that challenges, isolation that requires adjustment. But every place asks something of those who choose it. The difference is what you receive in return. What these communities offer is straightforward. The chance to build a life in California without surrendering your financial future. The chance to wake up to mountain views or ancient forests or desert silence and know that this belongs to you not just for a vacation, but permanently. The spotlight rarely finds these places. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what protects them. If any of these towns resonated with something you've been looking for, consider what it might look like to visit. Not as a tourist, but as someone genuinely exploring possibility. Walk the downtown streets, talk to residents, feel what daily life might become. This channel explores more of these hidden opportunities, places where quality of life hasn't been priced beyond recognition. There's more to discover, More California waiting beyond the obvious. The dream isn't dead. It's just quieter than it used to be.